So, we're talking about classical conditioning and some of the terms that go along with the concept of classical conditioning. And what I had stated earlier was that hypothetically, cats could be classically conditioned to associate a little red Kia car with food because they know that, oh, that little red Kia is going to equal getting some food. Now, what if a little car comes along that looks very similar but is different enough? Let's say it's a Geo Metro. It's a little red Geo Metro. It's a 4-cylinder, small engine, small car. The tendency for stimuli similar to the conditioned stimulus to bring a similar response. In other words, the cats could start salivating if they see a little red car, a little Geo, and they could start to salivate. Just like Pavlov, if he rings a bell that is slightly different, the dog, I should say, could salivate. But with time, whether it's Pavlov's dog or the cats in the neighborhood, they're going to learn to discriminate between a little red Geo Metro and a little red Kia. The discrimination, the ability to distinguish between a conditioned stimulus and other irrelevant stimuli. So, even though these two little red cars are very similar, because food is involved, they're going to be able to discriminate. And with Pavlov's dog, just as well, they're going to be able to discriminate between different types of bell, the different frequencies, which one means food and which one does not mean food. Now, I want to show you an image here when it comes to classical conditioning. Now, here's an elephant. And if you notice, this elephant is tied to a very tiny stake in the ground, a wooden stake. Clearly, this huge elephant could clearly break this tiny little wooden stake that's into the ground, but yet it stays and it doesn't try and move. It doesn't try to escape. Here's another photo of a mother elephant tied to a very little wooden stake, and the baby elephant is tied to this enormous stone. Now, what's happening here is this little elephant is learning that he cannot break the chain when he's tied. He's learning that if you're tied around the foot, it means you cannot go anywhere. That's why this enormous elephant is not trying to escape. He learned, this is where I am, this is where I stay. And this mother elephant is almost smiling at the baby elephant. You're not going to be able to escape. I've already tried. Even though, at this point, escape could actually happen. Now, I want you to think about how many of us have been tied to something that we could escape now, but years ago we couldn't. Now, this form of classical conditioning is called learned helplessness. An organism becomes passive depressed because it believes no conditions can change an outcome. This happened a long time ago. An experiment was done where a dog was given very mild electric shocks whenever this light bulb would turn on. The dog learned, light bulb means I'm going to be shocked. Now, they did a similar experiment where the dog, if he simply walked across the room, the other side of the room did not have shocks. However, the dog would see the light and he learned, I'm going to be shocked. I can't do anything about it. Even though he was in a different room, the experiment was now different. However, the dog didn't even try to walk around the room or try to escape. He already learned light bulb going on means I'm going to be shocked. He stopped trying. And this is a form of classical conditioning. I want you to think about how many of you are experiencing learned helplessness. You learned you're not good at something, so why try? Why give effort? For some of us, it might be math. You learned, oh, I've taken math in junior high, I'm not good at it, I'm not going to try as hard. Or maybe when you were in junior high, you were not a good athlete. You were in one volleyball team and you were not that good, and so you gave it up. How many of us experience learned helplessness? Oh, I've already tried it. I'm not good at it. And we embrace the learned helplessness scenario. But in actuality, we change every year. We grow and we develop. And the person we are 1 year ago, 2 years ago, is not the person who we are today. So think about learned helplessness. What have you decided, oh, I'm not good at that? Maybe you should reevaluate and escape the learned helplessness that you are currently embracing. Now, we've talked about classical conditioning. Now let's talk about operant conditioning. Now, operant conditioning, sometimes the examples are, the best ones are parenting, whereas for classical conditioning, I said some of the better examples are of pets. Here we see a little mouse will press lever for food. Operant conditioning is based on, it says, operant conditioning, learning which behavior is strengthened if followed by a reward or reduced if followed by a punishment. We're going to be talking about both of those things, punishments and rewards. Let's first elaborate on this gentleman, Edward L. Thorndike, and the law of effect. So he simply stated, which states that rewarded behavior tends to recur. Here we see a cat, and it's in a box. And what happened is he had a lever, and he wanted for the cat to learn, whether accidentally or on purpose, that pressing the lever meant you could get out and therefore get food. So Thorndike came up with the law of effect. However, it was then improved upon, focused, studied more upon by Mr. B.F. Skinner, behaviorism's most influential and somewhat controversial figure, and this is him. B.F. Skinner focused on shaping, and that's gradually guiding behavior toward a closer and closer approximations of the desired effect. In other words, if he wanted a cat or a rat or a pigeon to behave a certain way, he would reward the behavior until he finally got the desired effect that he wanted. Shaping, you could think of it as training. He's training behavior. Here we see a mouse in a little box, and when the mouse would press the lever, a little bit of food would come out. So he's training the mouse, press the lever, and you're going to get some food. And eventually, the rewards and the actions became more and more elaborate. So it started off by simply pressing the lever, you'll get some food. Then you have to turn around and then you'll get some food. You have to grab a little ball and put it in a hoop and you'll get some food. The little experiments that Skinner did became very, very intricate. This is an operant chamber, aka the Skinner box, for experiments that included a bar or a lever that an animal presses to release a reward and also records these responses. The Skinner box, very famous psychological experiments. Now, one of the things I want you to focus on is the term reinforcement. Reinforcement, any event that increases behavior. Whenever you hear the word reinforcement, I always want you to think, oh, reinforcement means increase, and reinforcement means increase. Here we see another picture from the Skinner box. So I don't want you to confuse reinforcement with punishment. And one of the ways you can make sure that you have the definitions is always think, oh, reinforcement, we're going to increase behavior. Here's a little arrow. When you think of the word reinforcement, always think of an arrow pointing up. Any stimuli that increases the rate of behavior. Now, when we hear positive, simply think, oh, we're adding something. Negative, we're removing a stimuli. Here's a little chart that I want you to keep in mind. So positive reinforcement, adding, pleasant. Negative reinforcement, removing, aversive. Positive punishment. Remember, the word positive means we're adding. The words negative means we are removing. Reinforcement means we're adding. Negative means we are removing. All right, so let's focus on this term right here. It says here positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement, very simple, increases behaviors by presenting positive reinforcers. So, a positive reinforcer, any stimulus that when presented with a response strengthens that response. So, a positive reinforcement, oh, okay, you did really well, you got good grades, we're going to give you money. Cash for grades. Now that is a positive example of positive reinforcement. They want you to get good grades, well then here's a little bit of positive reinforcement. And remember, I did say that for operant conditioning, parenting are some of the more popular examples. Video games for good behavior. You know what? You did real well, you behaved, it was a great week, it was a great month, or you behaved really well on that trip. We're going to go get you a video game. Or even when you're in elementary, if you're cleaning up your room or you're in school, when you're in school and they give you a gold star, a lot of kids in elementary really wanted that sticker. These are all examples of positive reinforcement. We're trying to increase behavior, right? Reinforcement means increased behavior. Positive, we're adding something. And these are really good examples of positive reinforcement.